When you are stressed out, the thyroid gland, just in and of itself, before we get into autoimmune, the thyroid gland itself will just stop, it will slow down. It will stop producing the two thyroid hormones that we need, T4 and T3, T3 being the most important, and we can dive into that in a second. It will slow down production of that, and it will increase a hormone called reverse T3 that literally puts your body in survival mode.
Welcome to the Stress to Success Shift podcast with Dr. Irene, where you'll learn powerful tools from world-class experts to bounce back from burnout and shift into success mode in all areas of your life, your career and wealth, health and energy, relationships, and personal life. Welcome to the Stress to Success Shift podcast with Dr. Irene. And today I am so thrilled to welcome Dr. Amie Horniman to our stage, to our studio. And Dr. Amie is the thyroid fixer. She's a woman on a mission to optimize thyroid patients around the world, not just in the United States, and give them their lives back using her proprietary transformational program, the FIX method. She is also the founder of the Institute for Thyroid and Hormone Optimization. And as always, our mess is our message. And after her own experience of insufferable symptoms, misdiagnoses, and improper treatment, Dr. Amie set out to help others who she knew were going through the same set of frustrations and who were on the same medical roller coaster. I can say me too to that. She grabs your hand, gives you answers about your health that no one has told you, and gives you the actual tools, important, and personalized treatment to fix you. What makes her program unique is the extra support and accessibility that you cannot find anywhere else, my friends. That's the transformational journey. And with a focus on optimizing thyroid and hormone function and thus optimizing her patients, Dr. Amie looks at you as a unique individual. One size does not fit all, and not just a lab value. She examines all factors that tie into thyroid dysfunction and thyroid symptoms and fixes you to give your life back. Can you see why I wanted my sister, Dr. Amie, here? Thank you, Dr. Amie, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Irene, for having me. I'm very pleased to be here.
And absolutely. So to maximize the time, let's hop right into it. A couple of weeks ago, I was actually on your podcast, which is called
The Thyroid Fixer Podcast.
The Thyroid Fixer Podcast. Go figure. Awesome name. Check her out. You're going to want to after this program. And there we talked about, the tables were turned. Dr. Amie was interviewing me about how chronic stress impacts and can cause hypothyroidism and other autoimmune conditions. And so this time I want to turn the tables and look at it from the other way. And you might wonder why with a name for our podcast of the Stress to Success Shift, that I wanted somebody who talks about health and energy. And the fact is, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Dr. Amie. We know that you cannot have true success in any other area of your life if you do not have a successful journey in your health and energy. Mm-hmm. And so that is why I asked you and why I'm so thrilled to have you here. So jumping into it, over the past couple of years with the chronic stress, have you seen an uptick in autoimmune conditions and especially Hashimoto's hypothyroidism?
Yes, for sure. So listen, we're all in this world together and we're all experiencing the stress of the pandemic together. And then whatever stress comes along with that, right? So homeschooling kids, working from home, changing jobs, losing jobs, figuring out where the money is going to come from. All of that is stress upon stress upon stress. What that does, and we know that the cortisol spike that occurs with a chronic stress or even an acute stress, you get that call, hey, I'm sorry, you're going to lose your job. The company's cutting back. That acute stress that comes with that rush of panic, or that long-term dragged out stress that occurs from, again, years of a pandemic, years of figuring all this out. Or maybe let's even leave the pandemic aside. Maybe you're taking care of a loved one. You're taking care of sick parents. You're taking care of a child with special needs. That is ongoing stress over and over again. That starts to take a toll on the adrenal glands. Now, we all hear about adrenal fatigue, adrenal blowout. You'll hear stressed out people say, oh yeah, I blew out my adrenals and I'm totally exhausted. that might be the case, but what we really know is that big time connection between the adrenals and cortisol and the thyroid. When you are stressed out, the thyroid gland, just in and of itself, before we get into autoimmune, the thyroid gland itself will just stop, it will slow down. It will stop producing the two thyroid hormones that we need, T4 and T3, T3 being the most important, and we can dive into that in a second. It will slow down production of that, and it will increase a hormone called reverse T3 that literally puts your body in survival mode. So everything slows down and shuts down because our bodies are so smart. They think, hey, this person is in trouble. We better slow things down, like fat loss, mood, sleep, energy, all of that starts to slow down. Now, where the autoimmune component comes in is we know that when there is a stressor, when that cortisol raises, and this can be, guys, this can be a stressor such as pregnancy, menopause, any kind of hormonal shift, because that is a stressor. Yes, women do it. They get pregnant. That's the cycle of life, but it still is a stressor on your body. Yes. Any stressor can flip that switch of autoimmune. 9 times out of 10 in women, we see Hashimoto's as that first autoimmune condition. Now, where we see one, we see more than one. So yes, that can spur into psoriasis, Crohn's disease, celiac, or maybe you have an autoimmune condition already, and then you go through a stressful time and you find out that you have Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune hypothyroidism. But that stress, that impact in your life and on your body and on your adrenals and on your cortisol flips that switch on. And then, hello, here's Hashimoto's.
I love it. I'm just making notes as you were talking, and because so that I know what to ask. I'd like to back up and really hone in on this reverse T3, because I know, and you know, that in medical school, we learn about it. And yet, for some reason, in conventional medicine, it's not tested and it's not even recognized, so long as that our other values, especially our TSH, are within normal limits. And if they happen to then measure T3, T4, they can actually look normal. And so a conventional medical doctor would go, hey, you're fine, you're good, bye-bye.
Right.
But bothering me nicely, of course, I'm sure, right? They're so stressed themselves and overworked that this is a crucial piece of the puzzle that is missing, that unless you go to somebody like Dr. Amie to get the reverse T3 tested, you're not going to have the full picture of what is really going on, and it really truly is that survival mode. When you're in survival mode, your body and brain thinks that there's starvation imminent, right? So that's why it closes everything down. And I just wanted to flesh that out a bit. And I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the reverse T3, because this to me is huge, that there are so many people out there who are being misdiagnosed or undiagnosed because they don't even, like, we'll talk about the Hashimoto's in a bit, but like this alone, it's stress. It happens in animals, right? And it really, truly, I believe that if people take nothing else from this talk, they need to understand this. So could you please flesh that out more?
Absolutely. So when you go to get a full thyroid panel, let's say you're having these symptoms of depression and anxiety and brain fog and memory loss and the weight gain and low energy, and you go to your doctor and you say, hey, doc, these are my symptoms, and I don't feel like myself. And you know yourself, you know your body, you know how you're supposed to feel. So you're in tune with when something is off. So you go to your doctor and you say, hey, these are all my symptoms. Can we please test? And oh, by the way, I heard this woman on this podcast talk about thyroid. Can we do a full thyroid panel? If you're lucky, like Dr. Irene said, you're going to get TSH, you're going to get free T4, but that doesn't tell us the whole picture of what your thyroid function is. So we have to go deeper, and we have to look at, like I mentioned earlier, T4 and T3 as being the two thyroid hormones. I want to look at your free T3. Now, why is that? T3 is the active thyroid hormone. Your brain has more receptor sites than any other organ in your body for T3. So when we're talking about depression and anxiety, which we can dive into, your brain needs T3. That is the active thyroid hormone. Every cell in your body has a receptor site on it for T3. So right there, why wouldn't we look at the most important active thyroid hormone level? We need to test free T3. Now, on the flip side of that, there is reverse T3. So we mentioned it's the survival mechanism of the body. And I like to give the analogy of a bouncer at a club. So you have this big old bouncer outside the door, arms crossed, pointing at the T3s going, you can't get in tonight. You can't get in either. So if your reverse T3 is high, it's not going to let T3 into the cell. So that T3 is not going to get to your brain. It's not going to get to your metabolism. You're not going to grow your hair. You're not even going to poop every day because everything is low and slowed down. And that reverse T3 being the survival mechanism. And this is where doctors, yes, they learned about it in med school, as I'm sure you remember, Dr. Irene, but it was taught more of when someone is in the ICU, when someone is in the ER. We test the reverse T3. Of course, it's going to be high because our bodies are smart, because our bodies know that if you're in a car accident, you land in the hospital, do you need to burn fat, grow hair, feel good, sleep well, or poop? No. So it's going to shut all those processes down so that your body can survive and heal whatever injury just occurred. What we don't want is for you to be walking around, living life day to day, trying to clean your house, trying to work, raise a family, get the kids off to sports, and you have a high reverse T3 where your body is operating like you're in the ICU. No. And we have to check that, because if we don't check it, then you're going to be walking around thinking that you're crazy because you feel this way, but yet you're being told that you're normal and everything is fine. And you're going, but this isn't right. This isn't the way to live life. I don't feel normal whatsoever. That's why those are the most important tests. Free T3 and reverse T3 are the two most important tests that need to be done every single time you go to your doctor, whether you're diagnosed or not diagnosed. I don't care. We want to test those to see exactly what the health of your thyroid is and how that is tying into all of your symptoms that you're telling us about. So those are those two hormones that are they're imperative.
Absolutely. And the key part to know, because medical doctors will say, yeah, I tested your T3. When they test T3, free T3, the reverse T3 shows up as under that. So it looks like you have plenty, but the reverse T3 is actually the inactive form of T3. So that is why if you just get the free T3, it's not going to show up what your true free or active T3 really is. And so thank you so much for that. And you brought up some really great points about the symptoms of hypothyroidism that may be caused. So basically what we're saying is that this is like a functional, what we would call hypothyroidism, that stress brings on. And just like there's a certain condition that's taking the world by storm right now, and it's causing high blood sugar and even diabetes in people that were on the edge. And it's because of the stress, the physical stress that it's causing. And so you can have functional T3, like in other words, where it's temporary. And then you can have the actual Hashimoto's and thyroid conditions where it's being attacked. And before we get to the Hashimoto's, I would love for you to talk more about the symptoms that hypothyroidism, let's keep it even to that point. Like in other words, you're under stress, and that could be physical, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual. And that it creates a nasty cycle because you're already stressed. That causes the functional loss of your thyroid hormones and thyroid hormone function. But then the very symptoms that it causes mimics what? Could you please talk about? You started to talk about it, and I just really want to flesh out.
Absolutely. And let me start by saying you do not have to have all of the symptoms. So you don't need to check every single box. Many people will just have 2 or 3, but when we look at their labs, okay, there it is. There is hypothyroidism and or Hashimoto's. Big symptoms, the biggest ones, I would say the top three that I see in most of my patients are weight gain, inability to lose weight, extreme fatigue, and anxiety and depression. And many people will flip back and forth between the two. And then, of course, with those, we can kind of go downstream and say, okay, well, when you're anxious and depressed, then you have brain fog, you have memory loss, you can't concentrate, you forget names that you know that you should. And it literally feels like an early onset Alzheimer's. I've had many patients say, is this dementia? Is this Alzheimer's? Is it starting early? And it's like, no, it is your thyroid, and your brain is not getting enough of that T3 to function properly. So when we're looking at whether it is a functional hypothyroid state, which is really only about 5 to 10% of all hypothyroid cases. Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, it could be that stressor that is shutting down T4 and T3 production. It can be stress, cortisol, causing exactly what you said, high blood sugar, putting people in that insulin resistant type 2 diabetic state that also affects the thyroid, because that is an inflamed whole body systemic inflammation state. Or it can be, which is about 90 to 95% of all hypothyroid cases, are Hashimoto's. That's the autoimmune form where your body is just confused. It thinks that your thyroid gland is an invader. And, we can't fault it. It's an autoimmune condition. Many of us have it in our genetics to have autoimmune. So we're talking about things like MS, lupus, celiac, type 1 diabetes, something as simple as psoriasis. All of those are autoimmune conditions. So when you look at your family history, even if Hashimoto's isn't present, but other autoimmune conditions are, that's a genetic predisposition for autoimmune. So that's why we test for Hashimoto's, we test TPO and TGA. Those are the two antibodies to see whether or not you have Hashimoto's. And that just simply tells us that your thyroid gland is being destroyed by your body, and we need to do something about that and stop it. But it always, always, always comes back to the levels, that free T4, free T3, reverse T3. We want to see those levels to determine what exactly you need. It might be something as simple as doing stress reduction techniques to lower the cortisol that's raising your blood sugar, that's causing the weight gain and causing the depression because you don't have enough T3 going to your brain. It's all about connecting the dots when we're talking about a hypothyroid patient. But going back to the beginning of this, you do not have to have all the symptoms. But one of the symptoms might be that anxiety, depression, brain fog, lack of concentration that you just can't pinpoint. You go, in general, my life is okay. I don't have any major stressors going on, but yet, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so horrible? Why can't I get through the day? And then the fatigue compounds, and you just end up feeling not like you, and you can't even figure it out. And it could be as simple as you are walking around with a tanked out thyroid, be it hypothyroidism caused by stress or Hashimoto's, the autoimmune form, and nobody's paying attention or getting to the root cause.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how you highlighted both the anxiety and the depression. And I've seen it, and I'm sure you have, in patients where they think they're going crazy. Like, is this bipolar? Like, one moment, like, his anxiety is full of energy, right? So it can feel like you're up, right? Mm-hmm. Full of energy. And then you crash down into the depression, and you may feel like you've got, or I've actually seen people who are like misdiagnosed with bipolar, right?
Yes.
Because they had the ups and downs and the panic attacks and like the palpitations and like, am I going crazy, or am I getting Alzheimer's? What is going on here? And number one, we're here to say you're not alone.
Right.
And number two, and even though I'm the Stress to Success Shift doc and you're the thyroid fixer doc, it's still, there are times where they need you, there are times they need us, and we refer back and forth, right? Because that's the beauty of it, right? That we have this network of world-class experts that we can say, okay, so I'm an expert here, and my peep needs this, so I know that expert over there, right? And that's the beauty of it, is that you're not alone and there are answers. I truly believe that everything is healable. And if we're not healing, it's just because we haven't found the answers.
And I truly believe, I love what you said right there, because I believe in the both and principle. I say this all the time on my podcast, both and, meaning I could work on their thyroid all day long and I can optimize their levels and get everything hunky dory there. But if they are dealing with a stressor that they're not dealing with, it's not going to work. You need the both and. So they need you fixing this part, healing this part, while I do this over here. So it's the biological, the psychological, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, everything has to be combined in one. Because if you just do one thing, it would be the same thing as someone saying, well, my diet is perfect, Dr. Irene. So it's definitely not the food. It's like, okay, well, maybe your diet is perfect and maybe it's not what you're putting into your body, but you have all these things over here that you're not addressing. That's what's causing your depression. That's what's causing your anxiety. And if I can add one more thing, you may have run into, I'm sure you've run into this either in your personal experience in the medical system or dealing with your patients that you work with now. Medical gaslighting is real. You may go to your doctor, you may go to 10 doctors and they all tell you, you know what, Susie, you're fine. I think it's all in your head or you're just getting older. And you leave there and you go, like you said, Dr. Irene, am I going crazy? Wait, I'm normal? No, that's not right. Wait, but he said that I was normal, but 10 doctors said I was normal. I must be losing my mind. And that truly is medical gaslighting that we see over and over again, where you really do have something going on and nobody's doing anything about it. And they're just telling you that it's in your head. I can't tell you the amount of people that has said to me, well, my doctor just said it's all in my head. I'm like, no, it's right here in black and white. We just needed to test you and find the answer. So, yeah.
There's and I say this with all the love of my heart, because as a doctor, and you're a doctor, Dr. Amie, that there is an academic arrogance within the profession, that if I don't have the answers, there must be no answers, which is unfortunate because our whole profession is supposed to be founded on the scientific method, right? And the scientific method is all about proving the null hypothesis. And in other words, which means keeping a completely open mind until all avenues have been exhausted. And instead they just go, well, there's nothing in the literature right now. And certainly, and what they really mean is nothing that I have seen. There's nothing in our medical guidelines. There is nothing that is accepted. How many years did it take for them to accept that ulcers were caused, for most people, not by stress actually, but by H. pylori bacterium? Like 20 years.
Right.
And they basically, the medical doctor who originally said it, because he looked at the veterinarians and saw the research that the veterinarians were doing on pigs, which were way ahead of us. He said, oh, let's look at that in humans. So he showed it in humans and they ran him out of the profession. Like, the poor guy. Like, in other words, that first person who says, just like Linus Pauling, he got 2 Nobel Prizes, one for physics, one for chemistry. And then when he dared say that we should all take mega doses of vitamin C because it's a beautiful antioxidant and it has numerous other benefits that, improve your longevity and decrease mortality, they basically said, oh, well, all of a sudden you must just be like crazy, or you've got Alzheimer's. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, so nobody is immune from this. And I always liken conventional medicine to the Titanic as the iceberg is looming, right? That it seems to take so many years for the massive ship of conventional medicine to slowly turn in a different direction. Sometimes it makes it, sometimes it doesn't. And how many people are hurt in the process by not having access to the knowledge, to the care, just even knowing that they're not crazy, that they're not alone. I'm sure, again, you're the same, Dr. Amie. I've literally had clients, patients sitting in my office crying because they're at the end of their rope and they have been told by so many doctors that this is all you have to look forward to. It's normal, or we can't find anything. It must be in your head. Or how about it's normal when it comes to hot flashes, or right. In other words, it's just something to be expected at your age,
right.
Or you're a female, or right. Rather than going, no, it's not just normal. Menopause is normal. All the symptoms of it are not. Same thing with as we work through stress, right? We want that stress response, both the acute and the middle. And, it keeps us alive. It does what it's meant to do, including the reverse T3. Mm-hmm. The challenge is that when it gets chronic, like it is for the vast majority of the people in the world right now, that it's like all bets are off. And we're going to see more and more and more of an uptick in autoimmune conditions because of the increased inflammation from the chronic stress. You are going to be run off your feet, Dr. Amie. And so we need to get that message out to the world as much as possible, that if you're feeling this way, and maybe you're feeling anxious and you meditate and you do yoga, in other words, you do all the right things that way, and you're still feeling anxious or you're still feeling low, maybe there's something physical, right? Yep. Just as Dr. Amie said, that on the other side, maybe somebody comes to her for hypothyroidism and she does everything right, the patient's doing everything right, and something's still not right. Well, then perhaps it's because there's stress or trauma involved. And it's all part of being human, that we're allowed to have more than one thing wrong with us.
Exactly. And isn't it beautiful how everything overlaps and connects? So we know that you can store trauma in the neck area. That's even part of Chinese medicine.
Right. That they don't have a voice. They don't feel they can
don't have a voice.
Their truth.
I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I'm clamped down.
Yes, can't swallow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that you have to
beautifully connected.
Absolutely. Dr. Amie, thank you so much for being here. And how can people find you?
So you can go to my website at dramieHorniman.com. The Thyroid Fixer podcast is on all podcast platforms. And if you are interested in booking a free discovery call to find out a little bit more about us working together, if you are diagnosed and you feel like you're not being treated properly, maybe not on the right treatment protocol, or you're suffering with the symptoms that we talked about today, and you're like, you know what, my doc just isn't testing and isn't listening to me, then book a free discovery call from my website and we'll chat and we'll figure out what direction you need to go.
And it doesn't have to be either or. That's the beautiful part, right? That you're not saying thou shalt never see your regular doctor again.
Exactly. No, we try to work with your regular doctor. There are docs out there that are open-minded and that want to learn and they want to help you. They just don't have that specific knowledge or the tools. And that's okay. We can work with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Amie. I appreciate you. I know that our listeners appreciate you and look forward to future conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Stress to Success Shift podcast with Dr. Irene. Please head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. By doing so, this will help us reach more people with our message. Be sure to visit www.drirenekopp.com to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content, and keep listening for more insights and tools to empower you to shift into success mode and enjoy life to the max.